Boxingego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. 1. Do you want to know 6 things Errol the Truth Spence Jr. can do to defeat Kell Brook May 27th? If so, stay tuned to this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with some Boxingego weapons. Now, I've already done 6 things Kell Brook can do. If you're new to the Boxingego channel or to this specific series, what it is I basically play trainer. And no disrespect to their actual trainer. Shout out to my dude, Derek James, Errol Spence Jr.'s trainer. But I just give my perspective on what each fighter can do as if I'm in their corner. And based on patterns, maybe even things that I haven't seen them do, what I think they need to do in order to win. Now, this is a great pick'em fight. You wouldn't be foolish to lean with Errol Spence Jr. and you wouldn't be foolish to lean with Kell Brook. Kell Brook, I did Ego Weight Watcher videos. He looks like he's in tremendous shape, but shape doesn't always necessarily equate to a victory. So, without further ado, I'm going to talk about 6 things I believe the truth Errol Spence Jr. can do in order to defeat Kell Brook, which is his biggest step up in class. Now, this is in no particular order. Let's get started. Number 1, remain calm, don't freeze up. Very self-explanatory. I think Errol, since this is his biggest fight, he's fighting in hostile territory, Bramall Lane in Sheffield, so the exact region of England where Kell Brook is from. He's going to have an immense amount of crowd support and a ton of fans. I looked at the capacity. The Bramall Lane venue, it's a football venue, and it holds over 32,000, and it's actually closer to 33,000. So he has to really just fight smart, revert back to his Olympic days where he had to travel, and this shouldn't be new to him. So I think he just needs to remain calm. Even if Kell Brook, who's a good fighter, who focuses on accuracy, right? He needs to, even if, like, let's say Kell Brook, for instance, is winning some of the early rounds, he just has to remain calm and don't get so discouraged that you're out of the fight. Don't freeze up. This is the moment that Errol Spence Jr. has been wanting and hoping for and praying for. And he says ever since he gloved up, this is what it's been about, proving that he's the best, becoming a champion, right? So I think that's important. Just don't let the moment get too big for you. A lot of fighters do that before the fight. They say this and that. I mean, look, recently we had a fight between Canelo versus Chavez Jr. And Chavez Jr., he laid pretty much a goose egg. He lost every single round, and he lost in an embarrassing fashion. Now, Canelo's clearly the more skilled guy there, right? However, I still think with Chavez's natural size and what he does do well when he's doing it well, he could have made that fight at least competitive, and it wasn't even that. So I think Chavez Jr., maybe some of his bad habits off season kind of led up to this, and he pretty much froze. So that's the opposite of what Errol Spence should do in this same situation. That fight was for the Mexican bragging rights. This is going to be for welterweight bragging rights. Who's the top talent? You know what I mean? And they make a strong case because the winner of this fight could definitely possibly beat Keith Thurman. Number 2, use southpaw advantages. Now, some people say Kell Brook is the southpaw slayer, things of that sort, but it's clear to me that neither of them have fought a fighter quite like the other, as pros at least. I don't know amateur or Olympics and sparring and stuff. I'm talking about as pros. If you look at their resume, none of their past opponents really measure up to the other person and what they do well. You look at Kell Brook, his best opponent to me is clearly Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter is a very good fighter. Shout out to my dude Shawn Porter and his dad Kenny Porter. But they fight totally different. Porter and Errol Spence, there's different frames. One's orthodox, one's southpaw. Shawn Porter is just kind of rugged and he just forces his way in. You know what I mean? I think Errol Spence has more finesse. He's more technically sound as he comes in, things like that. So different fighters totally. Same thing with Errol Spence. Errol Spence, the Leonard Bundus of the world, and Chris Algieri and Phil LaGreco, none of those guys are anywhere near what Kell Brook is as a fighter. Samuel Vargas, guys like that. So it's a big step up and challenge. And even though Kell Brook has historically done pretty good against southpaws, this is a different southpaw, right? This is Errol Spence Jr. we're talking about. And by and large, a lot of orthodox fighters, there's some, like Floyd Mayweather's unbeaten against southpaws. Amir Khan does very good against southpaws, like Devin Alexander. So there's some fighters who are known for being southpaw slayers and stuff, but a lot of fighters have trouble, some level of trouble with southpaws in general. So I think Errol Spence needs to use that awkwardness, use that ability to come in at a different angle, different than orthodox fighters will come in. And in a fight like this, I think each fighter needs to use any leverage, any strength, any type of ability that they have, and it has to be on full display in this particular fight. You know what I mean? Any strategic advantage needs to be something that is utilized in this particular fight. So I think being a southpaw for Errol Spence Jr., the way and the angle the punches are coming from will be a little bit different than a lot of Kell Brook's fights in recent memory, like Golovkin. That was another puncher, but that's an orthodox puncher. Southpaws can mix things up in a different way because the punches are coming from a different trajectory or angle, right? And on top of that, I think Errol Spence Jr. is quicker and more athletic than Golovkin. Even though Golovkin's a big puncher, I think he's a lot slower. In at number 3, a tight defense. Again, with Kell Brook fighting in his backyard, 33,000 people in attendance, you got to have a tight defense, because if he's landing clean, flush, head-jarring shots, then the crowd's going to go nuts. And we all know in boxing sometimes that influences the judges. So I think Errol Spence, he needs to have that tight defense. A lot of times he comes in with his gloves kind of high. Just be out on the lookout for the Kell Brook uppercut, and just maybe sneaky or timed shots or traps that Kell Brook is trying to set up. He needs to make sure his defense is all the way tight. On top of that, Kell Brook looks huge right now. He looks massive. So Kell Brook, we already know he can punch, and he's coming down from a higher weight. So if he may weight comfortably and that power is still there, then I think Kell Brook has the power to hurt really anybody at welterweight if he's hitting him right. So Errol Spence definitely needs to make sure his defense is tight. Again, you don't want to get the crowd into it and their hometown fighter, they're celebrating, which leads me into number 4. This is very important to me. Take away the crowd. Again, the British fans have been phenomenal in boxing in the last few years. They have a ton of champions, more so than I can ever remember. You know what I mean? There's been champions, Lennox Lewis and Joe Kawasaki, but when those guys had their reign, there weren't like 10, 13 other known champions, right? Now the UK is lit. They got Anthony Joshua. They got a former champion like Tyson Fury. They got Lee Selby, right? Anthony Corolla, Caleb Smith. They got Liam Walsh, who's fighting Tank Davis this week. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys who are about at the level, ready to challenge for a title. Maybe have challenged for a title, came up short, but still good names like Dillian White. You know what I mean? There's a ton of people right now from the UK, Carl Framptons, and the list goes on and on and on, right? James DeGale, British gold medalist. So there's a lot of talent, and it's re-energized the British fans. More and more they're coming out for these events, and they're making their presence felt, right? I covered Carl Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz in January of this year, Showtime card, and the amount of Irish fans that were there in Vegas, it was crazy. You know what I mean? Leo Santa Cruz he's from LA, which is probably like a 4-hour drive to Vegas, and there was far more Carl Frampton screams and crazy fans than Leo Santa Cruz, and that's not that far of a journey. So I'm sure Leo Santa Cruz had a good presence from LA that made the drive or caught a flight to Vegas, which shouldn't cost too much. It's not like they're traveling from New York to Vegas or something. And the UK fans were lit, you know what I'm saying? Some of them were drunk, all types of stuff. So Errol Spence wants to take away that crowd because, like I said, the British fans have been lit and they're filling up venues, 90,000 in the Wembley, right, against Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko. So it's going to be a crazy crowd. And like I said in the first thing, Errol Spence needs to remain calm, don't freeze up, and definitely take away the crowd. Land those shots that silence the crowd. You know what I mean? And he even alluded to this before. He says he wants to be like a gladiator, when movies where the guy comes in as a slave and people are booing, and then after you watch him fight life or death with a big ass tiger or lion, and then he wins and beats the beast, then people are cheering for him. He said that's what he wants. So he just needs to fulfill that. That's what he said pre-fight, and go in there with that, silence that crowd, make the crowd on your side, right? And I think that's really important because, again, this is a pick'em fight. So any little leverage, this boxing to me is about timing, and there's a lot of that has to do with the psychological advantages, and there's a lot to do with ebb and flow. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes it's hard to get out of a rut. You look at, let's say, Anthony Joshua versus Klitschko. Joshua was doing good, and then he knocked down Klitschko, burned himself out, punched himself out, and for a few rounds, it took him a few rounds to kind of get back into the fight. And really, I think the knockdown happened, let's say, round 5. Then he gets knocked down in round 6, and then for those next consecutive rounds, Klitschko was doing his thing, and Klitschko came back strong, ebb and flow, you know what I mean? And it wasn't until about the 9th round that Joshua was recharged and eventually got to stop it. So I think Errol Spence needs to take away that crowd and silence them and do it early, just so the fighter doesn't have a chance. Because you watch the fight with Kell Brook and Golovkin. Kell Brook got hurt in the first round, that woke him up, and he came back ferocious in round 2 and had the crowd going crazy, rocking Golovkin's head back. And this was a welterweight, so people were looking at it like, wow, we're just happy that welterweight's standing his ground and actually having some success, more so than Dominic Wades and these other people Golovkin fought. So definitely number 4, Errol Spence needs to take away that crowd and get them out of the fight, or make sure they're never in the fight, because he's winning as much rounds as possible. Plus, there are a lot of people who fear foreign judges, like when fighters go overseas to another person's backyard. So he wants to take away that crowd for that reason too, so the judges aren't influenced. Make it clear, make the rounds as clear as possible who won. If it's tight rounds, they might give it to not only the champion but also the hometown fighter. So to prevent maybe getting robbed on the scorecards or swaying of the judges, make the perception what they see is you dogging Kell Brook or silencing the crowd, and they're never really in it, or he's never really in the fight as much as possible. Number 5, jab. Jab. Forgotten in the sport of boxing. I also use a jab as one of the things that Kell Brook needed to do. Kell Brook has a very good jab, and this could be a jabbing contest for some spots of round, right? It's not just about power shots, and the more you step up in class with better fighters, better and better competition, you got to set up the shots more so than just bulldogging your way in. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I'll use Canelo Chavez Jr. again. Chavez Jr. against someone who he's much bigger than, much stronger than, maybe lacks some of the technical skills that Canelo Alvarez has. He could just come in with his head low and bulldog his way in. You know what I mean? Maybe against a Brian Vera. But that's not going to fly against Canelo Alvarez, who's a good counterpuncher, quick, fast hands. He's a thinker, boxer, puncher, has power, has accuracy, nice combination punches. So I really feel the more you step up in talent and the more you step up in class, some things that you could do with other fighters, you can't do. Like if Errol Spence is fighting Samuel Vargas, he doesn't have to be as mindful of a tight defense, because he probably feels that Vargas can't hurt him, or he can just overwhelm him, right? Things like that. But against a guy like Kell Brook, who's a boxer puncher, you want to set your shots up, and the best way to do it is with the jab. Don't just have the 2-3, you know what I mean? Have the 1-2-3. Like set it up with the jab and then get the combinations off, because if you're just coming in, it's just you can get picked off by a guy like Kell Brook. just coming in with reckless abandon. That's not what he's there for, and that might even be what he's expecting. So you have to show some levels to your fight game and show that you could jab too. You can. Some people have this notion that Errol Spence is just, he's kind of a brawler type. So you don't want to give them what they think you're going to give them. You know what I mean? Set that up and set it up intelligently, right? Don't, if they think you're just going to get in there and start slugging away and go for the kill, don't give them that right away. Set it up. And then when they get frustrated, then that's when you start opening up, or they start getting tired, or you start noticing body language. That's when you start opening it up and show what you could do. You know what I mean? You don't give them your best looks right off the bat. That's why, to me, Lamont Peterson almost stopped Danny Garcia. Lamont Peterson's not the biggest puncher Danny Garcia has ever faced. Make no mistake about it. But Lamont Peterson did much, much better than power punchers like Lucas Matisse, because although I feel Lucas Matisse is a very good boxer puncher, over the years, he got away from that, and he started becoming reliant on his punching power, and he wasn't setting things up, or against lesser opponents, he had to do less to set it up. If you're fighting John Molina, that's different than fighting Danny Garcia. Again, another good counterpuncher with power. Especially at 140, you have to respect it, right? And Lucas Matisse, to me, got a bit lazy as his career progressed, and he didn't realize that against Danny Garcia is going to capitalize off mistakes that maybe a John Molina wouldn't be able to capitalize off. Garcia has good timing, nice hooks, power, stuff like that, right? So you got to just work harder and set up the shots more. And again, the best way to do that is with the jab. And I think Errol Spence has pretty long arms, possibly longer. You guys could check out the Boxingego First Look, the tail of the tape. That's on the channel. But to me, it looks like his arms are longer than Kell Brook. So use those advantages. If you're taller, slightly taller, you have longer arm, longer reach, use that with the jab. Outwork Kell Brook, because if Errol Spence has a quality jab, that's a power punch, because he has so much power and he's so strong, right? So jab, jab, jab. And finally, the sixth thing that Errol Spence Jr. can do to beat Kell Brook, body work. And you guys knew this was coming. This is, I think, Errol Spence Jr. is one of this generation's Mike McCallums. And if you don't know the body snatcher, do your research. He's a body snatcher. He will abuse and tear up your rib cage, your body, and that's not good for anybody. Nobody likes to get their body molested. Pause. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to have their rib cage destroyed. And the reason you can tell is because in fights, when Errol Spence is attacking people to the body, you can see certain facial expressions. They'll grimace. There's certain body shots are very particular, meaning Brandon Rios, for example, he could take a headshot all day. Like, he can get hit in the head and still keep coming forward. I remember specifically, me and my brother, we were watching Brandon Rios Mike Alvarado 1. It was on the Nonito Donaire undercard, and it actually should have been the main event once we seen how epic the first fight was, right? Brandon Rios was getting hit with some crazy shots by Mike Alvarado, rocking his head up, and Brandon Rios would smile. He was smiling. Pacquiao was hitting Brandon Rios, and we know Pacquiao has power, right? And he has speed behind it, and Brandon Rios was smiling. Whether it hurt or not, he was still smiling and still kept calm. But when Brandon Rios, again, just like Lamont Peterson, Danny Garcia, when Brandon Rios, when he fought against Timothy Bradley, who's not known as the biggest puncher at welterweight, he got stopped. Because there's certain things you can fake to the head, you cannot fake to the body. More importantly, with this fight, Brook Spence, is Brook just traveled up all this weight to fight Gennady Golovkin, which to me, I told you, was foolish. Made no sense. Now you have a blemish on your record, your eye got injured, and you got stopped. So all the way around, despite doing good in spots, you still lost, and you still took a bad loss, and it put mileage on you that no other welterweight had put on you, right? Period. So to me, the body work is going to be important, because as he's traveling back down, he might have struggled to lose extra weight, because not only did he gain weight for the Golovkin fight and he didn't have to monitor his diet the same way, he actually gained more weight, he admits, because he had a surgery after that. So he probably couldn't work out his eye. I don't know what the recovery process is, but let's say he had a patch on his eye, so he probably had to just rest up. Couldn't really work out. You know what I mean? Seeing doubles or whatever the recovery time and procedures are. So now that he's back, you don't know how much weight he had to drop. And the best tool, I think, out of all these tools, I think that's why I saved the best for last, is the body work. You're fresh, you're young, you're hungry. Destroy that body, destroy the body, and make him regret fighting his mandatory. And also, Kell Brook is good when it comes to the 1-2 and clinching and stuff like that. That's a way, if you have one hand free, still work the body, work the body, work the body. Andre Ward, phenomenal body puncher that people don't give credit for. Watch his fight with Sergey Kovalev. When he had that one hand free, he was raking Kovalev's body. To me, that's what really slowed Kovalev down in the second half, which is why I had Kovalev losing to Ward. You look at the Canelo Alvarez versus Erislandy Lara. Canelo was getting his ears boxed off in those early rounds, but Lara, learning from the Floyd Mayweather loss, he was like, nah, I'm not going out like that. And he got super aggressive to the body of Lara, and Lara, his offense completely dropped. And he just became evasive and wasn't even throwing that much. That's a credit to Canelo's vicious body attack. This is what Errol Spence Jr. needs to do. Those are 6 reasons or 6 things Errol Spence can do to beat Kell Brook, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. If there's things that I missed or things that you really want to highlight, drop all that in the comment section. Drop your fight predictions below. Make sure you share the video, like the video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.
I mean, I think it's kind of like a tournament right now. I mean, you got the got the Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, and then after they fight, hopefully I'll fight Kell Brook, and hopefully maybe the winner fights Danny Garcia, and then the winner of the meeting, Kell Brook, will fight Danny Garcia, the winner of Keith Thurman, Sean Porter. I see he has a round robin, and everybody's fighting for that top spot that Floyd left.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxingego, the future of boxing.